January 29th, 2018. Hey, good morning, everybody. What's going on? Got the brain coffee here. I left my coffee mug, my Contigo, somewhere in this house. And I normally don't realize that till after I get the coffee going. And I was too lazy to go search, so I've put it into a cup. And it's going to be cold here in about 5 minutes. So when I'm done with this podcast, I'll have to go look for it. How was your weekend? I want to do a little quick, I'm going to call it social media, something, I don't know, Twitter. I want to give a little shout out to people I follow here and there, right? So Otis Frampton, if you don't follow Otis Frampton, I've been following Otis, I want to say since the Force.net, like a long time ago, early 2000s, early 90s maybe even? I don't know, a long time. But Otis has done a lot of Star Wars art. I mean, he's been doing this Jawa thing. He's been trying to get off the ground. Spectacularly, by the way. He does a lot of DC books right now for kids and stuff. But I believe let's see here. Was it married? They got married or engaged. But there's a ring and there's a congrats. Oh, she said yes, so they got engaged. So congratulations, Otis. Otis is a good dude. He reaches out every now and then and gives me props. So, good guy. Talented dude, man. Wish I could draw as fast as Otis. Super fucking talented. We got a shout out from Instagram from artist Kuzo Mari. Kuzo says he's been listening to some of the podcasts on YouTube while inking his manuscripts, listening to art talks while he's hitting deadlines. Makes him feel a little less alone. So, Kuzo, if you listen to this podcast particularly, glad to know you're not alone. If you're just turning on the streams, and there's because there's 8-hour streams in there, that's what they're there for, right? One of the reasons why I do the real-time streams on the YouTube channel. And if you don't know, if you're just listening to me on iTunes, so I stream almost all of my art in real time on YouTube. So you'll see 10-hour videos, 8-hour videos. I don't expect you to sit there staring at the screen for 8 hours watching everything I do. I will stream while I work, and then I'll have conversations with people online, or Brandon will come on, or I'll have Kyle or different friends, we shoot the shit. It's there to help other artists just not feel alone, So when you go to work and you're like, shit, I'm the only one doing art here, I could turn on one of the streams on a second monitor or an iPad, secondary device, whatever, and have someone hanging out with you, basically. It's the idea. And then let's see who else. Oh yeah, Jonathan Rector. I was following his Twitter a little bit this week, and old Jonathan has been playing Dragon Ball Fighters and loves the game, hates the multiplayer because the fucking servers are broke as shit. I would just say, Jonathan, every multiplayer game is broken at launch, unless it's Blizzard. Eh? But even then, all their shit was broke. Luckily, there's plenty of single-player content in that game. I'll give it a couple weeks. But like anything else multiplayer-related, folks, I tend to stay off those games at all for the first 6 months of any multiplayer game if I'm going to partake. Like, I just now got Battlefield, the one that came out last year, because I want to play World War I material, but I just don't want to deal with, that first year of launch and stuff. So that's how I roll. So yeah, like I said, if I follow you and stuff, I'll be giving more updates on what's going on, things I see worth mentioning, just fun little anecdotes. And follow Jonathan Rector, Otis Frampton, and check out Kuzo's stuff, Kuzo Mari on Instagram. So will I put links? Probably not, but follow my Instagram and then follow the people following my Instagram. Follow everybody. Let's move on. So what did I do this weekend? how do I say this? Technical stuff for Game Cave. So, developing the first version of the final templates for all the game reviews and getting set word counts across each one, and then testing it. So it was like a matter of, here's what I think will work. I'm gonna go write some stuff, it not working, going back, adjusting my templates and workflow, and then making a piece and it not working. So that was Saturday. It works. So today I get to start production from a writing standpoint, and on the weekends I'll be doing the graphic design part and artwork moving forward. So yay, Rob. On Sunday, I meant to get this commission done, but the Mercy color pencil, I meant to get that done. But I am trying to make certain that I'm only working on commissions for 2 hours during the week, daily during the week, and maybe 2 hours a night on the weekend, depending on how it works out. We'll see how that goes. So instead, I've been working on, how is it? So there's an easy part to this, and then there's a developing part. The easy part I'm going to explain first. So when I create line arts digitally for covers, the downside to doing it all digital is that I don't have a piece of art to sell when I'm done, right? Makes sense. The easy solution to that is take those lines, print them back out, ink them, and then I have the lines. I've seen some artists have asked me, well, Rob, this isn't technically the one that got printed. Is that like cheating? To which end I say, well, when you draw something traditionally and then have an inker do it, ink it, or ink it digitally, or even color over it, those lines invariably change. Whether you start with the traditional or you go with the digital and ink it, it's irrelevant. As long as there's the one piece, I'm not making multiple copies of them. Like there's that one bit, whether I do it before or after is irrelevant to me. So that's the easy part. The trick is that I want to do those lines a little bit differently than just straight redrawing them. Here's why. Because take this last cover. This is the example. I just did this cover for Valkyrie Saviors from Mount Olympus Comics. The lines are super easy for me to draw. And they're super clean and they have a nice smoothness to them. To just recreate that isn't really how I draw traditionally. I draw a little bit rougher when I draw an ink traditionally, a little bit more aggressive, a little sharper. So it's like I'm kind of, it just doesn't feel like I'm making something that's going to get much use out of. Because if I want to make like a coloring book, I'm not going to use the traditional lines. I'll use the first ones I created. So I have this craft paper I bought. This craft cardboard. It's not even cardboard. It's a cardstock. Super fucking good stuff. I used it twice last year. I did a Wonder Woman sketch. Oh, more than twice. I did a Wonder Woman sketch. I did the Old Man Logan. I did a version of that. I did a Violator thing with it. So I think a One Punch. I think I did 3 or 4 pieces with that. And I like the certain aspects, the way things came out. So I want to print these lines out on that and then ink it on this stuff and add a little bit of white highlight and do a little bit of red pencil shading. So it was like trying to narrow down what that is. Because one of the things that I see in color, I don't see in value. So when I'm dealing with value, which are black and white, positive and negative values, like this area will be all in black and this will be white. I don't see that. But that is not how I see the world. This is why I'm not a very good inker. I loved looking at like Miller's Sin City work when I was a kid. Could not execute any of that stuff. Remember Silent Night, Deadly Night? It was like all brushwork and super positive and negative values. I just don't. It's just not how my mind works. So when I put line arts down onto tonal paper, and I start pushing things into shadow, it just so it starts to give me a headache basically. So it was like I spent all of last night experimenting with different ways I think it could work, and I'm like looking at this right now, and I sort of settled down on a common idea I'll move forward on, and then I was like, all right, let me at least do this for an hour. I'll print out another copy and get it going. And then I ran out of printer ink. Isn't that the way? And I have backup inks. I always keep like 2 sets, but I ran out of black. And I thought I had extra black because I normally buy extra black inks. So I have this Canon Pixma Pro. If you were following me last year, my printer broke on a stream live while we were streaming. One of the backers here, one of the crafties, decided to donate a brand new printer. They just let me pick, what was going to help, and they took care of it, and I am deeply appreciative to that. That was Mike, old Ben Goodfinger, hooked that one up, and I really appreciate that. The thing though is, even though it's a Pixma Pro, it uses a different ink set. So I had this Canon that used a CLI-8 was the nomenclature for the ink sets. So I had a bunch of blacks, a bunch of color. The new one is CLI-42. So, and with that, I just wasn't thinking. So I thought my extra black was the 42 when it was for the 8s. So I had to go off and order a bunch of those. And so, folks, I just use the cheaper inks. I don't get the official Canon ones, I go with the cheaper ink sets. They're usually $20 to $30 a set. As the life of these printers goes down, those $20, $30 sets end up being like $15, $16 a set. That's where you get that sweet spot. Only downside is your printer head can go out on you in 2 years, and a new print head can cost you $100. Except, it's still cheaper than paying like $64 for one set of black inks, like one set, one cartridge. So it's ridiculously expensive. But yeah, that was last night, and then in between that, I sort of just work on like character arc stuff. So writing. Finished Freelance Friday, freelance milestone, and so I'm waiting on future work with them. So we'll see how that goes. That's an interesting project. This game stuff. Let's switch the conversation a little bit. So, are you familiar with what imposter syndrome is? Now, I'm not going to read the official definition on Google, because I want to go off how I feel. It's defined, right? Like, imposter syndrome is basically like this. It's, how do I explain? The example would be this. Someone who generally doesn't know what they're talking about feels very confident in knowing about things that they actually don't know anything about. You ever meet someone that knows absolutely what a movie should be or what something should be, and they don't know a fucking thing about movies? Or they want to tell you what art is, and they don't really know anything about art, but they like to come from a place of authority, even though they have zero knowledge of what they're talking about. Well, the more you know about something, as the saying goes, the more you really know about something, the less confidence you actually have in your ability to understand it, or the less you feel confident in your ability to even do it. So the more understanding you have about art, the less confident as an artist you are. Because you go, well, actually, you understand how complex it is. So you're willing to take less credit for doing anything at all. Like you respect the struggle. But it can also sideline into, let's say you have a major success. It can be fame, it can just be personal. Like you managed to create a cover, a commission, anything that is just good. Or likewise, you release a book, a game, a project, and it becomes super successful. It gets a lot of heat, you did well financially. With success, you could also feel like, well, I didn't really earn that. I didn't really do anything important. And for me, that comes from that idea that the more you know, the less confident you are in yourself. Recent example of this would be Chris Metzen, the main story guy and the guy that like invented a lot of the Warcraft material from a story perspective, and recently left Blizzard. And they were asking him about it, and he was talking about imposter syndrome. Like after having completed Overwatch, he just didn't know if he could keep creating like wins, and every time they get a win, like he's expecting to fail, but not failing, and then he's like, I'm not as good as the other people around me. That's a big thing. Like working on projects where the people next to you are clearly more talented at individual things than you are. But if you're in a position of leadership, you having the ability to coordinate those things and give those people the opportunity and the space to create those things in a positive environment, in a successful environment, is what I would put Chris Metzen in, is a situation like that. So, like that, like trying to relate leadership skills to execution. Like if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where you can hire people more talented than you, then, you shouldn't look at their talent and be like, I suck compared to them. And when I say you shouldn't, I say that because I've been going through it myself. Like I'm working on, some projects with some people who are clearly more talented than me artistically. Just, you're like, that's impressive, Doesn't make me not want to draw, but I did get myself into a position this week where I was like, this is taking way more effort mentally to execute the objects and the stuff that this client needs, when they already have like 4 or 5 people who are fucking doing phenomenal. Like, what do you need me for? I do get to that position where it's like, why am I doing this again? Like, what am I really bringing to the table? And, first off, if they, more often than not, if there's already 4 or 5 artists on board and they picked you up, it's because the 4 or 5 artists can't do all the work. They need more hands, So you got to take that into consideration. Then there's my personal struggle, like trying to fit into what they're doing. That's a little bit, I don't know who to blame on that one. Like, because I'm not blaming them, I'm not blaming me, but it's a struggle. It's a struggle to stop doing what you're naturally good at and like go execute at someone else's level of detail or level of expectation. And I spent the majority of my career doing that. And I told myself I wouldn't do that again. And yet here I am. I love the project. So, it's one of those things where if you really want to do something, what are you willing to sacrifice? And for me, I literally just had to go downstairs and admit that I can't do it. I had this small process. It's when you realize you can't do something, You have to actually, truly realize you can't do it. You just can't do it. You can't start off telling yourself, I can't do it. You have to actually get to the point where you know, I cannot do this. And then you step away from it. And then you come back and you will start to do it. And I sort of think like I've had this experience many times in my life, creatively and personally. And I believe it's pathways in your brain being rebuilt. I'm not a neurosurgeon, I'm not Sam fucking Harris or any of those guys. So, neurologist or whatever. I don't understand. But I do know through experience that if I completely come to the realization that I cannot do this right now, I cannot do this at all, that this is not working. Great. There's always some asshole who wants to call me when I'm doing the podcast. See? Didn't I mention that last podcast? That phone hasn't rang all weekend. Not since Thursday. The second I turn this fucking microphone on, that damn phone rings. I'm not recording the whole podcast to get around it. So, my bad, folks. But what was I saying? Oh, yeah. You have to completely realize you can't do it. And then step away from, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a day. Just go do something else. When you come back, the brain finds a new way. That's because you could not do it the old way. There's a new way. There's a new way that it has to get done. And to me, that's sort of what happened Friday night. So, and you could come up with specifics. Well, Rob, it's about this, and maybe it's because I'm not good at painting, or I'm not good at coloring, or I'm not good at making dinner, or I'm not good at... It's not that you aren't good at those things. It's that your current way of reasoning or figuring it out mentally doesn't work. And so new pathways have to be made. A new way to do it has to be built in your head. And luckily, if you're healthy and you're good to go physically, mentally, then the brain's totally willing, like it does that on its own. It really will do it. It will create little, and that's where you have those, you ever feel like you leveled up? You ever feel like when you work on stuff, like you definitely got better somehow, like you gained something? It wasn't just doing something like, oh, that looks cooler. It's like you advanced a level. To me, that's what that feeling is. It's because a new pathway was created. So that was Friday night. And then, let's see what the 23-minute mark. And then lastly, I finished up Attack on Titan Season 2. Probably talk about that next time. So that's what I did with my wife. Today is a whole new day. Today is January 29th, 2018. And my coffee is now cold. So it is time to get to work.